A look at the oil price. It shows that Brent crude is trading currently just under $110 a barrel. Now, a new report says the Hormuz crisis makes the case for clean energy. The Energy Transitions Commission says renewables can prevent the energy price shocks that we've seen since the conflict began at the end of February. And I'm joined now by Adair Turner, who's the co-chair of the ETC that produced that report. Thank you so much for your time. Essentially, the Iran Energy Security Report sets out the business case for why clean energy makes sense. Talk us through the main points of that.
Well, if you look at this crisis, Mr. Fatih Birol of the International Energy Agency has pointed out that in volume terms, it is actually a much bigger hit to global oil and gas supplies than, for instance, the Arab oil embargo of 1973. But we are not yet seeing anything like the economic impact that we saw at that time. And that partly reflects the fact that we now have alternatives. We don't need to drive petrol cars, we can drive electric vehicles. Now, let's be clear, there is a big hit economically going on. There are very big increases in gasoline prices in the US, and there is a very, very big hit on vulnerable low-income countries in Asia are feeling very, very affected by it. But the good news is that we now have an alternative. It will take us time to develop, but the incentive to develop the alternative, which is a deeply electrified economy, getting its electricity almost entirely from renewables and nuclear, that is available. And what is really interesting is that we are already seeing market developments which are taking us in that direction as markets respond to the realization that relying on fossil fuels creates a vulnerability. We are, for instance, seeing very big increases over the last few months in Chinese solar PV exports and imports by countries as varied as India, Ethiopia, Kenya. We are seeing in India the government encouraging the development of electrification, and Prime Minister Modi saying we have got to head in the direction of electrification to escape from this reliance on fossil fuel imports, which creates a vulnerability for our economy.
Okay, so how do we accelerate the transition to clean energy, given currently 3/4 of the world's population still relies heavily on oil and gas imports?
Well, 3/4 of the world's population relies on oil and gas imports because oil and gas is not equally distributed across the world. It's incredibly unequally distributed. It's located in particular environments. So an oil and gas economy will always be one where we need huge international trade, and then that international trade is vulnerable to geopolitical events. And now in 4 years, we've seen two huge ones. We saw the Russia invasion of Ukraine in 2022 and the huge impact that that had on gas prices in Europe and around the world. And now we've seen the closure of the Straits of Hormuz. So just in 4 years, we've had two very, very big shocks, which reflect the fact that if you have a system which is dependent on trade in fossil fuels, it is just vulnerable to geopolitical events and volatility.
So,
renewable energy is not equally distributed across the world, but almost everybody has renewable resources. And so it's much easier for people, and it will take us, several decades for people to be much more energy independent.
I think it also requires bold leadership and courage to take the opportunity. I'm thinking of President Trump, who is proudly pro-oil. I wonder if his trip to China this week, seeing clean energy in action, has perhaps persuaded him, and how you persuade someone who's committed to oil.
It's a very good question, because I tell you, every time I go to Shanghai and Beijing, I come back and I say, why aren't we going faster in London towards the benefits of electrification of our road transport, getting the noise and the pollution off our streets? So I don't know whether President Xi Jinping managed to, show President Trump enough of what Beijing traffic looks like to have that effect. But you are absolutely right. We do need bold leadership. We have had it in China. China has still a lot to do. You've got to move beyond coal in the electricity generating system, but on the side of electrification, you're ahead of the world. But other countries, and in particular countries in Asia, and I will be down in Singapore next week, I think should see what's happened in this crisis as a wake-up call to really go faster on electrifying cooking, electrifying road transport, electrifying heating in those places where there is a heating need. And all of that is now technologically possible.
Thank you so much. Really great chatting to you, Lord Adair Turner. He's co-chair of the Energy Transitions Commission.